All right, joining us now, Senator Chris Coons. He sits on the Judiciary Committee. You're still hanging in there, huh, Senator? Still in D.C., still showing up every day. How do you do
I'm actually
it?
I'm in Wilmington, Delaware this morning, but I am showing up for work every day that we're in session, yes.
Still your job, and it seems to a lot of us, we wonder, why would anyone want to? No, we need you. We need people to run things. So you heard Senator Cruz. I guess you probably have a different take on what's going on.
Well, I hear from Delawareans up and down my state that they are desperate, eager for us to do a bipartisan deal and deliver another round of support for small businesses, nonprofits, families, schools, state and local government. And our challenge has been, Joe, that since the House passed the $3.5 trillion HEROES Act 4 months ago, Republican Majority Leader McConnell has been out of these negotiations, hasn't participated. And as long as it was Secretary Mnuchin, I thought he and Speaker Pelosi could reach a deal fairly quickly. But Mark Meadows, President Trump's chief of staff, has been in these negotiations for months saying no, 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 no. And there are three key elements that Democrats are looking for. Speaker Pelosi has come down $1 trillion from the bill passed by the House. McConnell put a bill on the floor a few weeks ago that was just a few $100 billion. We have an imminent collapse coming in terms of the rental markets. So I support money for renters and landlords to prevent a wave of evictions and foreclosures. I support money for state and local governments. There have already been 1.5 million public employees laid off, and laying off more teachers, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, nurses from public employment in the middle of this is a terrible idea. I also think the airline industry, which is telling us they'll be laying off as many as 100,000 people in October, needs an extension of their particular provisions. There's a lot of different things we could and should do together. I take encouragement from the fact that the CARES Act 6 months ago passed unanimously. I am discouraged by how hard it's been. I'm on the Small Business Committee. Senator Rubio, Senator Cardin, a whole group of us agree on another round of PPP for small businesses. We should be getting this done.
Senator, one of the points that Eamon was making, I think you may have heard it, is that it would be in the president's, theoretically, interest to be able to talk about getting a deal before the election to help Americans. Why do you think Mark Meadows, who represents the president as his chief of staff, what do you attribute the intransigence to? Is it, I mean, $2.4 trillion is a long way from where the Republicans want to go, and we can always blame both sides with the finger pointing, but do you think Pelosi would ever go to $1.5 trillion? Will she go below 2.4? Maybe there's somewhere to meet there.
I don't speak for Speaker Pelosi, but I hope there is, because frankly, at the end of the day, this isn't political calculation. This is human suffering. And there are folks whose businesses have barely made it on the PPP loans that have become grants, and they're about to close and close for good. And if we look back at the 08-09 period, when the financial crisis turned into several years of people losing their homes, losing their businesses, the impact in terms of people's desperation, bankruptcy and relocation within our country, all of us who come to Washington do so because we want to make a difference. And making a difference is the art of compromise. Frankly, my hope is that we can do this now, because the cost to the American people is just going to get greater the longer we put it off. Yes, it's a huge amount of spending, but it's only because of that CARES Act that we passed 6 months ago that we are not in the second Great Depression. This is why we have a federal government in some ways, is to respond to natural disasters, and in this case, a human disaster, the flawed and failed response by the Trump administration to this global pandemic, which has now produced a recession. We have to come together to strengthen the response to the pandemic and strengthen our economy together.
Right. Yeah, the entire globe is dealing with it, Senator, and a slowdown globally, obviously. Let me just switch gears quickly. I don't know how I'd characterize the Kavanaugh hearings. You were there. I don't know, maybe in hindsight, you think differently about what went on back then. I remember you were with Senator Flake, and I remember the way it went, the former Senator Flake, and you, I guess, relative to a lot of what went on, you were fairly reasonable, I think. Are you going to meet with ACB? That's the new name. It was RGB, now it's Amy Coney there. Would you meet with her? We've already had Blumenthal, senator from Connecticut, and Hirona say they won't even meet with her. Would you meet with her?
Well, three things, if I could, quickly. Whether I talk with her by phone or meet with her in person, I haven't resolved yet because we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's just one more thing this pandemic has upended is how we work in the Senate. I don't think we should be moving ahead at all. We should be focusing in the next 36 days in getting this pandemic relief package passed. But I will participate in the hearings because I think it's important that the American people hear questions of Judge Barrett about her publicly stated views on repealing the Affordable Care Act. I'll remind you, Joe, 100 million Americans have pre-existing conditions, 7 million more with this pandemic, and those pre-existing condition protections in the ACA are on the docket of the Supreme Court the week after the election. Judge Barrett has spoken publicly about how she doesn't think this is constitutional, and President Trump has said he will put someone on the court who will help repeal the Affordable Care Act. There's no replacement plan. To me, to strip away health care and health protections from a majority of Americans in the middle of a pandemic is grossly irresponsible.
You heard Senator Cruz say the Republicans want to keep pre-existing. You know, I'm always nice to you. I hear you got a really nice...
How?
You got a really nice son.
I mean, they say that, but they have no bill to do it.
You have a really nice son named Mike, a handsome young redhead.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to be nice to you from now on. I understand he's a good guy at Penn, and so that's why I go so easy on you all the time. So, and you must have a great father. So I'm just going to... I'll leave it at that, but I'm not sure you want to go... That last Kavanaugh thing, Senator, have you rethought some of what went on there? I mean, I think it may set this up for a little bit more courtesy when it happens. Don't you think? That wasn't good for anyone, was it?
Oh, I think the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings and process were sharply divisive for the country. That much is clear, and it shredded a lot of the respect of the committee members for each other. We saw the process and the facts in sharply different ways. During the first round of those hearings, I really focused on now Justice Kavanaugh's views on executive power. He's a brilliant jurist. I've known Justice Kavanaugh since we were in law school together, and he clerked here in Wilmington. But he has views that are well outside the mainstream on the power of the president to reach down and control executive branch agencies that are currently independent. And that was my main focus. With Judge Barrett, I'll be focusing on policy issues, on jurisprudence, the sorts of things that I think should and ought to be in front of us on the Judiciary Committee as we consider someone. But that doesn't make me any less outraged at how we are racing through with very little time to look at her record and background and very little time for us to conduct thorough hearings just to meet a partisan objective, which is filling this seat before the election.
I hear you. I hear you. We'd hear some different stuff, obviously, from the other side, but I understand what both sides need to get their points across, and we appreciate your time today. And like I said, best to Mike. Guess my daughter and him are pals. So great. Thank you, Senator. We'll see you around.
Thanks.